everyone. I'm excited to bring you this video. This is a compilation of a lot of work that I have been studying for the last 5 years. And it's really the secret to perfect health and perfect mind. And this book that I'm getting a lot of this information from is written by George W. Carey. And the name of the book is called God, Man, the Word Made Flesh. He talks about cell salts, but he also talks about the journey of the cerebral fluid, spinal fluid that goes up. Well, it comes down from your brain and then reestablishes itself in your sacral chakra. And then it goes up your spine and opens up your third eye. And this happens every month. And you have to know when it's happening. And I have this on my website. I do moon charts for people. I've offered that. You can go on my website and you can see that that's there. I don't think people realize the importance of it. And I wanted to put this video together because this is really the secret of a lot of alchemy, a lot about how to stay in bliss and how to stay healthy in mind and body. So we're going to get into this. Now, I had found this picture of the medulla oblongata, which is inside our brain. And when I saw this picture, I was like, that's the phoenix. And I am convinced that's the phoenix. Okay, it looks like a bird, and you see how it goes down the spinal cord. It looks like the tail of this phoenix. So now, when I've been reading this book, I was so grateful. Somebody sent me this book about a year ago, one of my subscribers. And when I was talking about cell salts, and I never really went into the book and really read it, but I started to go back in and start reading it. And it's the whole journey of Christ and the Virgin Mary with Joseph and the oil, and how this is all intertwined through our body. Okay, so this oil, this CSF that comes down from our brain is the oil. And that's talked about in the Bible, that you have to light your lamps with the oil, and that's your chakras, right? So it's like all this work that I've been talking about and what I've been teaching in my school, it's like really coming down to it being us inside our body. Okay, so I want to go through, there's a lot of reading. You have to bear with me because this is a lot of information. And I can't just like skim through it really fast for you to get a real grasp of the importance of this topic. Right? This is so important. And you have to know when this seed is in your sacral chakra every month. And it takes about 4 years, I've read in the book, for you to practice this before your body becomes divine. Okay, so it takes a while. So you have to start to do it, right? So that you really become the temple that your body is meant to be. Now, it all ties into the Cabala tree because of the path coming up the body, the narrow middle path. And what I'm doing tomorrow in my class is talking about the Hebrew letters and the Greek letters. And unfortunately, my web manager has not responded to me to upload this class. So if you are interested in this class, it's all to do with the Hebrew letters and how to create them three-dimensionally with your body. And it's also to do with the foundation star, which tells you which tarot cards align to your body. Okay, so it's also, this is all information to help you stay at optimal health. This is what this is all about. Okay, it's not just learning information just for the fun of it. It's really to learn how to apply it to your body. Okay, so if you want to sign up for the class, just shoot me an email, and you can pay through PayPal. And the class will be live tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And then hopefully I can get it posted once the class is done this week, if my web manager gets back online. I hope he's okay. So first thing I want to talk about is the sacral chakra, because that is where this oil goes to and has to rise again, like the Kundalini. Okay. And this is your locust. When you see the locust flower, they have a car here called the red locust car, you know, so they know that this is important, right? This red locust flower. And they're saying here that this sacral chakra is believed to be located between the navel, where the perineum is, and said to be associated with the sex organs and the kidneys. Okay, so this is ruled by Scorpio, right? Ruled by Mars, and Ophiuchus, the 13th zodiac. That's what rules your sacral chakra. Okay, so it's Mars energy that has to rise. And Mars also rules your crown chakra. Okay, so I'm going to start to try to show you how astrology and the Hebrew alphabet, which is the foundation of life, is all to do with learning your own body. Okay? It's associated with the water element and portrayed at a vibrant orange color. That's the sacral chakra. Okay? So it's water because of being Scorpio. Some believe the chakra is governed by Parvati, the Hindu goddess of fidelity, fertility, and power. And then they're saying here, this in Sanskrit, it is the chakra of the moon crescent, which represents the relationship between the tides of water and the phases of the moon. And this all ties into the Cabala tree. Right? It's one of the sephirots that has the moon crescent. Okay, so now when I started to research this, I found out that it's the sacrum is known as the sacred bone. Okay, so this is where the seed gets anointed and then starts to rise. Now, the sacred bone has 8 holes in it. And that's interesting that this is all tied to the moon, because the moon has 8 phases to it. Okay, so this is why it's represented by the moon, I'm presuming. Okay, so now here they're saying why it was called the sacred bone, the holy bone. It's also known as the holy bone. I read somewhere, I know it's not in this text here, but what they said, it's a holy bone. Okay, it's because it has holes in it, you could say, but it's the sacred bone because it's sacred, because that's where the oil is. Okay, so they just don't want to come out and say it. But here they're saying it was used as sacrifice, since the sacrum is the seat of organs of procreation. So when they, sacrificed an animal, this part was sacrificed, and that's why it's called sacred. But I do believe it's because of the oil being, anointed there. Okay, so they're talking about that. And then when you look into the locus, which is always the seat of your sacral chakra, when you sit cross-legged, you're in the lotus position, and that is the moon phases. Okay, so we see it in the visual. Okay, it's because that bone is related to the moon and your moon phases, and that is what governs. The moon is what governs your oil. Okay, it happens every 29 days, and you have to know when it's happening. Okay, so this was an article I found with somebody talking about it in modern day language here. She's saying your body is the holy land. Okay, and our body has the ability to produce new blood and awaken our dormant brain cells as the final product. The sacred science of the psychological regeneration is also spoken about in the Bible as allegorical symbolic stories. There's a much deeper meaning to it. And this is what I've discovered, okay, in this book. Okay, so you can buy this book and you can learn all about how the Bible and the whole journey of Jesus is inside of you. Okay? It's actually happening every month. Some of our ancestors, ancient ancestors, used the science to live for hundreds and even thousands of years. When the new blood is produced, the old toxic blood is disposed, and by the body's own methods. Okay, so you can regenerate your body if you start to work with this and you start to save your oil. I was getting to that part. The ancient sacred knowledge has to do with astrology and how knowing astrology can save you. It is not some rubbish pseudoscience. Astrology is an innocent term, astro meaning stars and lology meaning science. Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci knew these secrets. This is the holy oil that is called this Christos in Greek. This is the story of Christ within all of us. The oil is secreted from the cerebrum, from the holy claustrum or Santa Claustrum. The story of Santa Claus comes from the inner science because Santa is bringing spiritual presence down your chimney. This is from your spine, is basically the chimney. From the cerebrum to the claustrum, it is then differentiated into the pineal gland and pituitary glands. Now, the pineal gland and pituitary glands are two figures in the Bible, right? And they are Joseph and Mary. Okay, so this video, I'm going to go into what the roles of these glands are doing actually. Okay, and I want to go into in depth about what their purpose is. Okay? It's not just about this oil, they have other purposes that they're doing in our body. So the pineal gland releases a masculine electrical portion, which is known as honey, and the pituitary gland releases a feminine magnetic portion known as milk. So now we find out what the real honey and milk are in the Bible. The sacred heavens are also in the holy portions of our brains. This is the land flowing of milk and honey. So the land flowing milk and honey is your brain. The pineal gland is connected to the Pingala nerve. The pituitary gland is connected to the Ida nerve. These are known as Kundalini and the Kunda buffer. These nerves extend all the way down the spine and the tree of life. These nerves go down to the sacral plexus and the sacrum areas of our body, lower vertebrae. The sacral plexus holds very strong sexual energy that is a beautiful energy, and when harvested can turn into an electrical energy that rises back up to the brain. The solar plexus and the sacral plexus area is known as Bethlehem. Okay, so this is like mind-blowing. Okay, that's the modern version of it. When you get into this book, he goes into more biblical translation of it, and also he talks about the Hebrew letters all through the book, because it's important to understand the Cabala, because it's your tree and it's all about your body. Okay, that's what the Cabala is about. It's not just learning sacred texts. It's really understanding how it all relates to your body. It is important to abstain from the release of the precious fluids when the time comes for the seed to be implanted in your sacral plexus. So you're not allowed to go to sexual peak on the days, okay, when this is happening. If we waste it, we have to wait another month. We are supposed to return some of the energy up. Death occurs when the oil dries up. Okay, so you don't want your oil to die. What's interesting is in the Eastern world still has applied knowledge to the retention of transmuting of this beautiful energy we all possess. Some benefits are it increases testosterone in males. Ladies can also return their energy back to the brain. Now, this is a really big key to it all, okay? Alcohol and acidic producing foods are also detrimental to this precious oil that comes from the cerebrum. So this is really important. I didn't know this, okay? This is new knowledge for me. So you're not supposed to drink or eat anything acidic. So no coffee, no chocolate, okay? And no alcohol and no red meat, because red meat's acidic, okay? We have 4 brains. The cerebrum is the God brain. The cerebellum is the man brain, which is connected to the lower mind. And the third brain is the medulla oblongata, which is responsible for involuntary actions such as breathing. The fourth brain is the solar plexus, which has to do with the lower mind, greed, and animalistic behavior, etc. So it's like sexual, right? So they say it's animalistic. For the most part, we are all stuck in the lower mind. I like to search for this type of this information because I'm willing to strip my ego and experience blissful, unconditioned consciousness. When you return the oil back up, the frequency rises and the vibration increases. By the time it reaches your 33rd vertebrae, And that's why Christ was crucified at 33. It is crucified at the pneumomastic nerve, crosses over and connects to the pineal and pituitary glands. When you return the oil back up, the frequency rises. Okay, sorry, I just read that. The oil of the Christ lights up the optic thalamus gland, which is otherwise known as the light of the world. At that point of the crucifixion, then it stays in the limbo, dead, so to speak, for 3 days. It's actually 2.5 days. Well, they're saying the oil stays here, but you have to make sure the moon is in your sign for at least 2.5 days. So they're saying 3 days. So it's more than just 1 day. So this is all new information for me. I didn't know how long the oil stayed there. Like how Jesus died at the age 33. This takes place at the 33rd vertebrae. Funny how this all ties in, isn't it? She's saying. At this point, when the oil exponentially speeds up to hit the pineal gland, all of our millions of billions of dormant brain cells are activated, and we are now operating at the God brain level from the cerebrum. This would be activation of your true spiritual self, and you will remember who you are and why you incarnated. This knowledge locked in our brains comes out. And I think because this is why I feel like I know my past lives and stuff, because I've been practicing this for at least 3 years. Okay, so this is important to start your journey. Okay, so this all ties into the Bible. Now, this is coming out of the God, Man, the Word Made Flesh book. Okay? John the Baptist. So you need to buy this book if you really want to get into this whole understanding of it. John is the ointment oil that flows down the spinal cord from your reservoir of God substance in the upper brain, the Most High, the heaved up place, the heaven within. We know that we have in heaven a more enduring substance. The mysterious circumstances connected with the Bible story of John the Baptist and the information given in Smith's Bible Dictionary prove that the holy divine origin of that which was called John, but which means oil in Greek. Now, that's a mind blow for me. Okay, John, oil in Greek. Now, I live in Quebec, so the national holiday here is St. John Baptiste Day. Okay, so we're celebrating the oil here every year. John's father was said to be a priest of Abia or Abijah. The letter in the Hebrew means whose father is Jehovah. Jehovah is the upper brain, the Most High, the crystalline dew, referring to the medieval Hebrew. Before the oil is raised by the seed, thus giving 1/10 to the Lord, it is called natural or wild, not cultivated, like wild flowers, wild honey. So John was the wild man, a native, a parable, most certainly. His food was locusts and wild honey. The pineal gland and the pituitary body's secret fluids called milk and honey in the scriptures. Locust means destructive, devour, a glutton. Okay, so they're here saying in this passage here, all the tree of life and fruit seeds shall the locust, sex desire, consume. The reader will please remember that the Bible is a secret doctrine, or that which is within and not without. History is the record of the outward things. John, the natural man, was an eater of fruit of the tree of life, with the girdle of the camel's hair, from the gimel, the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So if you know your teachings of the tarot and the Cabala, you'll know where this is on the tree of life, okay? Of the Cabala tree, which pertains to the external male organ. But John, like the prodigal son, changed his mind and is made to say, one cometh after me to get me, and latchet of whose shoes, Pisces, rules the feet, the soles of the feet fishes, I am not worthy to unloose. Okay, so now we know John is the oil. Now, the journey of Joseph and Mary is also related to this. On either side of the thalamus in the head is a gland known in the psychological as the pineal, on the posterior, the physiological of the pineal, and the posterior of the pituitary on the anterior side of the thalamus. The pineal is a cone shaped and secretes a yellow or golden fluid. The pituitary body opposite it is the ellipsoid in shape and contains a whitish secretion like milk. The fluid that are found in both these bodies come from the same source, namely the colostrum, which means bearers of cluster, and to refer to the cluster for the very good reason that the precious and holy thing is secreted or secluded there. Saint Claus or Santa Claus is another term of this precious fluid. So he's just repeating what this other girl had said in her article. Okay, what's in this book. They all got it from this book. Okay, the precious fluid which flows down from the colostrum separates, partly going to the pineal gland and part to the pituitary body, and these, being special laboratories of the head, differentiate the fluid from the colostrum, and it takes on the colors above mentioned, and in the pineal gland becomes yellow and has electrical properties. The pituitary body having the milk-like fluid, the magnetic properties. So there's what we just talked about. These two glands are the male and female, the Joseph and the Mary of the physical body. So Joseph is the pineal gland and Mary is the pituitary body. Okay? And then they're saying here, the parents of the spiritual son born in the solar plexus of each human being, commencing at the age of 12. So Jesus is born in you every month, okay, if you don't burn him. Okay? This yellow and white material, which is the milk and honey referred to in the Bible, the children of Israel having been given the promise of return to the land flowing to the milk and honey, at last reaches the solar plexus via semi-lunar ganglia, the Bethlehem of the physical body. In Hebrew, Bethlehem means house of bread. I am the bread of life, said the allegorical Jesus. In the solar plexus is the thimble-shaped depression, a cave or manger. And in this is deposited the psychophysical seed of the Holy Child, born of this immaculate conception. This psychophysical seed is also called fish, as it has an odor of fish and is formed in the midst of the waters, the pure waters. Jesus is the fish in the midst of the water. Before birth, the human fetus floats like a fish in the fluids by which it is surrounded. And it is with this that the child formed on the generative plane. So it is with this spiritual child born in the solar plexus, the Bethlehem. Joseph and Mary, by furnishing the material for the spiritual child, which was to redeem the child or body formed in generation, paid the symbolical redemption money. Holy Ghost, Greek for breath, the breath descended the pneumatic gastric nerve into the solar centers, enters the manger where Joseph and Mary are, and where is Jesus the seed literally conceived by the Holy Ghost. So that just blew my mind. Okay, I've been trying to figure out the Holy Ghost for 5 years, and it's like right inside your brain. Okay, so the sacral region of the man's body near the base of the spinal column is a gland larger than a hen's egg of spongy character, and into which is secreted from the blood a small amount of oil. At the same time that the blood throws out, refuse into the bladder. Okay, so the bladder is all connected to this. So this is back to urine. Okay, I'm just like, this is interesting. Exceedingly little has been known to physiological this about the gland or about the purpose of the secretion, except that the elderly men, it often becomes the seat of disease called the proctitis, and That is the young men of the dissolute habits of the secretion becomes filthy. This gland is known in the East as Kundalini and in the New Testament Greek as the cardia. It will be best to know it here by the name rather than the medical term. The oil in it will elsewhere be identified with the Greek psyche and be referred to herein. The oil is subject to very degrees of consistency, from very thin, volatile oil that promptly evaporates when exposed to the air, to one having a good body, a truly fixed oil that will form a permanent stain upon a piece of paper. So you want your oil to be thicker. In the most healthy, wise, vigorous man, it is a fixed oil. In the average kind of man to be met on the street, it is more or less volatile. It enrakes. It is very malodorous and may contain pus. Oh dear, that's like awful. So somebody that is not looking after their body, this oil becomes pustule, okay? For its highest and purest condition, when it is fixed oil, colorless, odorless, and tasteless or sweet, not really acid, not really alkaline, we shall use the Greek term chrism, or for short, by the root letters of the noun for the oil and the verb to oil, the kris in Greek, XPI. This all ties into the alphabet. Wow. It is a necessity of the nature of this oil, when purified or secreted in the cardia, shall usually make its way out again through the capillaries into the blood, and so pass over the body wherever the blood goes. It is then one of the constitutes of the blood of Christ. At the present day, boys 15 years old or older usually get more or less annoyed by nature's complaints of congestion. Indeed, it appears in boys 7 to 14 years old, a proof that this annoyance does not come from the seminal vesicles. Every cigarette smoker gets a certain relief from smoking because of the poisonous and narcotic effects of the tobacco deadens the voice of nature. It has been proven that when this gland and its oil act properly, there is not only no desire for tobacco, but tobacco is then too repulsive to be tolerated for a moment. The body is a lamp. This oil is its illuminating substance. Without it, there is no consciousness. When it is completely exhausted, consciousness ceases and disintegration takes place. This oil is not only easily affected, but the effects are carried through the blood into the structures of the tissues of the brain and other parts. In all ages of the world, a small and select few have known how to multiply this life essence. An enormous importance is another fact regarding this oil. It is extremely effective by mental states. That's why you got to stay in bliss. Okay? This is all part of it. And by the states of consciousness, this oily milk of the nursing mother may be poisoned by a sudden fit of anger, so as to make her nursing baby sick. This is the effect of the mind upon matter. A ferocious appetite can be destroyed instantly by reading a telegram announcing the death of one's mother. The psychological results of having plenty of good oil, thus circulating constantly in the body, we have demonstrated to be, first, this is what happens if you do this, okay? Destruction of all semblance of nervousness, irritability, greed, fear, and unrest. You become peaceful. Second, the perfection of digestion and assimilation. Okay, so your stomach and everything starts to work correctly. Third, restoration of impaired eyesight and hearing. Prevention of decay in the teeth. Fourth, full amount of the most enjoyable and restful sleep. freedom from the use of all drugs. Much less food is desired or needed. There is no demand for stimulants. Fifth, neutralization of blood poisoning, probable destruction of cancerous or all other blood diseases. 6, prompt and complete prevention of all kinds of self-abuse, restoration from the effects of earlier indiscretions. 7, immunity from colds and probably from all kinds of infectious diseases. That's a big one right now. 8, restoration of youthful vigor and prevention of all fatalities of old age. 9, in short, accomplishment of everything that unlimited vitality should be expected to produce. Wow, that's like amazing. Okay, so your body just starts to regenerate itself. So the killing of the fatted calf, or the kaf, this is the Hebrew letter that goes with the Taurus card. Okay? So Taurus rules the Hierophant, okay, the Pope card. So the killing of the calf, which is really the toroidal field, right? A Taurus, we know it's a toroidal field. We know that's the Silver Gate. We know that's where the Pleiades are. We know that that's the where the Aldebaran, the bullseye, is the end path of the Duat. Okay, so this is all really important. Okay, as has been written, the origin of the words and the application of the characters differ so widely that confusion, worse confounded, is the result in numberless cases. The 11th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is the kaf, a halo, and represents the human hand. Yes, the kaf in the Hebrew letters is, they say, the closed hand. Okay, so it's like the hand, the palm of the hand closed. Okay? The halo, or the hallowed place. The cerebrum, upper brain, is hallowed and covered the cerebellum like a wing. The cerebellum is therefore a secret place where the ego, or spiritual man, the second man, Adam, a quickening spirit, or the Lord God from the heavens dwells. 91st Psalms. The upper brain is a parable of the prodigal son, is represented as the father, being the cause of and the furnishing of the substance to build and replenish the body. The ego is represented as saying to the father, give me the portions of the goods that falleth to me. Now this portion was the oil that flows down the Ida and the Pingala to form the seed. But the ego, thinking of a carnal plane, wasted his substance in riotous living. The evil results that followed is likened to swines and husks, etc. As the story of the harem Biff in Masonry, this is all to do with Freemasonry, after the word was lost for a season, the seed is the word. That's because the seed is a Hebrew word, okay, in Luke. Or Hebrew letter, I should say, not a word, but the seed is a word. It's to do with the alphabet. Everything, the Hebrew alphabet is the creation of life. It was resurrected so in the Prodigal Son Parable, 29 and a half days passed. The material for another seed descended and said, I will rise and go to my father. When the seed comes forth out of the manger of Bethlehem, house of bread, I am the bread of life. A vibration of greater life is set up, life more abundant, and it thrills the entire temple of God. Now comes the astounding revelation. The original meaning of kill is not to take life necessarily. It rather means to choke or squeeze. To choke a sponge or squeeze water from it does not mean to take. Okay, so it's like there's this gland, this hen-shaped egg gland in your sacral squeezes the seed, and then that's what rises it back up your Jacob's ladder, up your spine again. The primitive Christians and the Essenes fully realized and taught the great truth that Christ was a substance, an oil or ointment contained especially in the spinal cord. Consequently, in all parts of the body, as every nerve of the body is directly or indirectly connected with this wonderful river that flows out of Eden, the upper brain, to water the garden, saying that early Christians knew the scriptures, whether written in ancient Hebrew or Greek, were allegories, parables, or fables based on the human body, fearfully and wonderfully made. These adepts knew that the secretion, gray matter creative, which secretes from the cerebrum, was the source and cause of the physical expression called man. And they knew that the River Jordan was symbolized in the spinal cord, and that the Dead Sea was used to symbolize the sacred plexus at the base of the spinal column, where the Jordan, the spinal cord, ends, typifying the entrance of the Jordan into the Dead Sea. The thick, oily, and salty substance composing of the sacral plexus, clauda equina, tail of the horse, may be likened into the crude petroleum, petra, mineral or salt, or oleum, Latin for oil, and the thinner substance, oil or ointment in the spinal cord, may be compared with coal oil. And when the oil is carried up and crosses the ida and the pingala, two fluid nerves that end in a cross in the medulla oblongata, where it contacts the cerebellum, Golgotha, the place of the skull, this fluid is refined as coal oil is refined to produce gasoline, a higher rate of motion, and causes the ascension of the airship. Wow. So it's so weird how they want to get rid of gasoline. It's like an allegory, right? They're trying to not let us know about our own gasoline. When the oil ointment is crucified, to crucify means to increase in power 1,000-fold, not to kill. It remains 2 days and a half, the moon's period, in a sign in the tomb, the cerebellum, and on the third day ascends to the pineal gland and connects to the cerebellum with the optic thalamus, to the central eye of the throne of God, your third eye. That is the chamber overtop by the hollowed, caused by the curve of the cerebrum, the most high of the body, which is the temple of the living God, the living vital substance, which is precipitation of the breath of life, breathed into man. Therefore, the holy whole ghost of breath. It's just mind-boggling. Wow, it's crazy. So then they're talking about nun, which is the fish again. And that's death, but now we know it's not death. It's more like to squeeze out. And the fruit of the tree, therefore, is the fish bread, of which thou shalt not eat on the plane or animal of Adam, earth dust or earth plane, but to him that overcometh will I give to eat the fruit of the tree of life. So basically, you're creating your own fuel in your body. As a man thinketh in his heart, so he shall be. The cerebellum is heart-shaped and called the heart in Greek. So it's the heart is in your brain if you understand how to do this. Now he's saying 29 days in your whole sign. So it depends if you're born at the beginning of your sign or the end of the sign. You need to know that, and you need to go on Stellarium to see that, because you can't really find that out by just looking at charts. You have to know how to use Stellarium, or you can ask me. I can do your yearly chart. It's on my website. I've been offering that for ever since my website's been up. I didn't understand it had to be for 2.5 days. I thought it was just 1 or 2 days. So it's saying 2.5 days because the moon is in your sign for 2.5 days. But if you're like in Virgo, and the moon is in there longer than 2.5 days. So if it's related to, it has to be, when the moon gets out of your sign. Sometimes it could be more like 3 days. It all depends if your sign is a small sign or a larger sign too. So these are all things, but you can find that out on Stellarium. Okay, so now here we're looking at this phoenix head that's in our brain, And so the pineal gland is on the back of the head, which is interesting because, oh my God, I just figured it out. The moon card, right? The Hebrew letter means back of the head. Oh my God. I can't believe that. It's the back of this head. Okay. The medulla oblongata. It's like, oh my God. And okay. So then the pituitary gland is on the nose of the phoenix. Okay. It's like on the, or you could maybe say the mouth. Okay. So that's Joseph. And this would be Mary, the pituitary gland. Okay. So, okay. So there, now we can see the phoenix. You can see it here. Okay. More clearly, and you have your ventricles. I'll show you what all this means. I'm going to go into, how this is all symbolic visually. Okay, so the phoenix is there. He's pointing. That's his nose. That's where the pituitary gland is here. And now we know the pineal gland is back here, the back of the head. They don't have the pituitary gland here, but you see it. But this is the phoenix. This is the phoenix. Phoenix rising. Okay. Now the lateral ventricles are the horns because this is ruled by Taurus, right? And third ventricle is here, but this is like mind blowing. So when they do the horn signs, they're talking about the third eye. That's what it is. Everybody gets so freaked out about it, and it's like they all do it. It's because they're talking about open your third eye. So Taurus rules the third eye. There's the crystals that go with it. And when the moon is in Taurus, you feel prosperous and abundant. Okay. When the sun is in Taurus, projects, determinations, and refinement. Now, Taurus rules the house of your belongings, like everything that, the material world, bringing it, your third eye brings you your abundance. Right. So once you understand it's a currency, because it rules your third eye to see, you create the current to bring it forth to you. And it's all to understanding how this realm works, right? It's how to manifest things. It's done through your third eye. Okay, so this is all part of the whole thing of, getting your horns and your eye opening. Okay, Taurus, you see? It's in the artwork. And then it's even at the Vatican, because this is your pineal gland. It's a pine cone. Okay, it's related to the pine cone. I just got one of these for Christmas to go in my garden. So I'm just like, wow. It's like crazy. Okay. So here's the brain. Okay. So here we have the pituitary gland, cerebellum. And this is in the Michelangelo painting, right? He hid this knowledge all inside here. Okay. And then there's also a quartz in your pineal gland. Right? They found out this. The scientists have found piezoelectric microcrystal inside the pineal gland. Right? It's like an antenna. It's an antenna to higher dimensions because you can start to get to your higher self and get God's knowledge coming through to you but you have to do this ritual every month. You have to know when it's happening, and you have to know how to hold your oil and don't let your seed burn. The word pineal, the Latin pineal, means pine cone. Okay? So it is pine cone. It's in the third ventricle, okay, which I showed you. Now, what's the function of it? One function of the pineal gland is to produce melatonin. Melatonin has various functions in the central nervous system, the most important of which is to help modulate sleep patterns. Now, when you start to know how to lucid dream, you can start to do outer body experiences, and you can, time travel, basically. You can start to go to other places. Right? So melatonin production is stimulated by darkness and inhibited light. Light sensitive nerve cells in the retina detect light and send signals to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN, synchronizing the SCN to the day-night cycle. So this is all tying into the cycle of light and dark. Okay, so it's to do with the melatonin. So I started to go into this a little bit more. Then you hear about people talk about decalcifying your pineal gland. The calcification of the pineal gland is typical in young adults and has been observed in children as young as 2 years of age. The internal secretions of the pineal gland are known to inhibit the development of the reproduction glands because when it is severely damaged in children, development of sexual organs and skeletons are accelerated. Pineal gland calcification is detrimental to its ability to synchronize melatonin, and scientific literature presents inconclusive findings on whether it causes sleep problems. So if you have your pineal glands calcified, you might have sleep problems. They probably, most likely, they just don't want to tell you. And here, this is a 17th century philosopher, René Descartes, had the Treatise of Man, written before 1637, but only published in 1664. And in his last book, The Passions of the Soul. So he's saying the pineal gland is all related to the soul. Okay. And that's Joseph. Okay. Now, the history of the pineal gland is the combination has led to it being regarded as a mystery gland with the mystical, metaphysical, and occult theories surrounding its perceived functions. They took an experiment here and they took a pineal gland from a cow and they put it on the skin of a frog and it lightened the frog's skin. That's kind of nasty. And they thought maybe it would help with skin diseases, a name for the hormone melatonin. This melanoma is probably related to melatonin. So the substance did not prove to be helpful and intended, but its discovery helped solve several mysteries, such as why removing a rat's pineal accelerated ovary growth, while keeping rats in constant light decreased the weight of their pineals. Okay, so when you have light in your eyes all the time, your third eye is weakening. Okay, so that's really important to know because the computer shoots off light. And I think you need to get glasses. I need to get glasses to stop that from happening. Because, yeah, it's not healthy for your pineal gland. Okay, so constant light affect ovary growth. Okay, so now this is interesting. The knowledge gave a boost to the then new field of chronobiology. Now we know Chrono is Saturn, right? Chronos, he's the god of time. Okay, so chronobiology is such the adaptation to solar and lunar related rhythms. Okay, so it's the sun, the light and the dark. It's all related to the rhythms of your body. And this is cool. You can just go Google this, but this, I didn't put a bigger map up here, but they tell you like at 2:30 in the afternoon, you have more coordination. They tell you when you're more likely to have bowel movements. It's all to do with the cycle of the light, right? It's all to do with our body. So Chronos meaning time. Yeah. So yeah, it's really cool. So that's all to do with the pineal gland. So the pineal gland is, working with our sleep patterns. And this is when you can be able to go into the dream world. And, this is time perception, right? So the study of time perception and chronoception. So it's to do with time. The ancient Greeks recognized the difference between chronological time, chronos, linear time, where you think, we're not going around in circles, which I think we are. We're just repeating the same stories over and over again. And you're just here to learn from the stories, the archetypes with every life that you come here, and you're just going round and round. And then there's subjective time, which is Kairos, which this translates into the word weather in English. Okay. So weather it has a deeper meaning. I'll get into that. Then we're talking here about sleep again. Sleep has been found to benefit spatial memory by enhancing the hippocampal dependent memory consolidation. So by sleeping, it helps with memory. They've discovered that, I think when you learn something, if you sleep right after, you're more chances that you're going to remember it. A period of wakefulness has no effect on stabilizing memory traces in comparison to periods of sleep. Sleep deprivation hinders memory performance. Improvement due to active disruptions of the spinal memory consolidation. So you want to sleep to remember. So that's why lucid dreaming, we do a lot of, like, you go to sleep, you dream, and then you wake up, and then you try to go back to sleep again and try to get back into that dream. This is all triggering that ability to control memory to do with sleeping. Okay, so Kairos is an ancient Greek word meaning the right, critical, or opportune moment. So you're at the right time, right? You're at the right place at the right time. And Kairos also means weather or time. So it's a different type of time. It is one of the two words that the ancient Greeks had for time. So there's more than one word for time. This is fascinating. The other being Chronos, whereas the latter refers to the chronological or sequential time. Kairos signifies a proper or opportune time of action. So you're at the right time at the right place. That's the type of time you want. And then he says that traces of primary roots back to the ancient Greek association with both archery and weaving. So this is interesting because the moon goddess, Diana, she's an archer, right? And she shoots Orion by mistake. It's her boyfriend, and she shoots him. And then there's the whole weaving. Weaving is a mythology that comes up with Athena, and she's jealous because she's being challenged that she's not the best weaver, and there's a whole mythology with that, with her. In archery, Kairos denotes the moment in which an arrow may be fired with significant force to penetrate a target. Wow. And it's the bullseye, which is in Taurus, your third eye. In weaving, Kairos denotes the moment in which the shuttle could be passed through the threads, like the exact time, right? So a fleeting moment, a favorable opportunity opposing the fate of man. This is all Kairos. Such a moment must be grasped by the tuft of hair or the personified forehead of a fleeting opportunity. Otherwise, the moment is gone and cannot be recaptured. Personified by the back of the head being bald. Interesting. I think Horus, the child, has a tuft of hair going down the front of his face. And that's probably why, because he's at the right time at the right place. Okay, so now we're going to get into the pituitary gland. Just want to go over this briefly. He described the pituitary gland as a part of the series of the secretory organs of the excretion of the nasal mucus. So the pituitary gland, it has like mucus coming, and it goes into the nose. The gland in which slime drips. Okay, so it's relating to slime. Now they're saying here, the pituitary is a lobe of the gland that regulates several psychological processes, including stress, growth, reproduction, and lactation. The immediate lobe synthesizes the secretion of the melatonin stimulating hormone. So it's to do with hormones, the pituitary gland. Okay, so that's why it's related to Mary, right? It's, yeah, so Joseph is to do with the pineal gland, which is related to melatonin, which is relating to sleep, and then memory. And then the pituitary gland is related to hormones, and it secretes. The hormones secreted from the pituitary gland can help control growth, blood pressure, energy management, all functions of sex organs, thyroid glands, and metabolism, as well as some aspects of pregnancy, childbirth, breastfeeding, water salt concentration. That's important because this book also talks about cell salts and which ones you're missing, because you're only in the womb 9 months and you're missing 3 months, and you need to take those cell salts. And it's also at the kidneys. This is all to do with balance, right? Temperature regulation and pain relief. Temperature regulation. This is interesting. I'm going to get more into this in my book. I'm going to go into this a bit more because there's something really important in here with the temperature regulation. It's to, you know, I don't know if you've ever heard of Iceman, and he's able to heat ice water around him when he's submerged into ice water. And he's using a type of the part of the brain that they're studying because they can't believe he can do that. And I think it's this was done also in Druid priests were able to do that as well in antiquities. So it's accessing a certain part of your brain. Various comments of ancient physicians have been read as referring to the CSF. Hippocrates discussed water surrounding the brain when describing congenital hydrocephalus, and Galen referred to the excremental liquid in the ventricles of the brain, which he believed was purged into the nose. But then for 16 centuries, nobody knew about it, and then it got rediscovered. Okay, so this was discovered in 1744. Swedenborg referred to the CSF as a spiritualist lymph secreted from the roof of the fourth ventricle down to the medulla oblongata and spinal cord. This manuscript was eventually published in translation in 1887. And then it goes into this cave. This is like where it goes into your sinus. It's called the trigeminal galleon. Okay, and this is it's a cave, the Meckel's cave, and this is where this secretion goes to. But it, you know, it goes down the spine, and then the seed rises, and then, you know, it's just interesting to kind of know what your body is doing. It just kind of helps to know what these glands are doing. So now when you think of Mary, you can start to think about her working with your pituitary gland, the divine feminine. It's your hormones, right? It's all to do with childbirth and breastfeeding and lactation and all this. It's fascinating. So this is why she's Mary, right? Because she's the mother. She's the mother of all. But it's inside your own body. So I hope you can join my classes. The one tomorrow night is exciting because I'm going to help teach how the Hebrew letters are three-dimensional and how you can actually work with them through your body. Okay, you can actually create them with your body. Okay, so, and that's the Manly P. Hall says is the foundation of the universe of these 22 letters. And then of course they tie to the tarot cards. And once you start to see, when you look at a letter and you can see the tarot card because you've looked at that letter, you know what letter ties to the tarot, you can start to really decode this reality because they're using this language in everything. It's like crazy. You know, it's just, it's nuts, you know. It's just, I see it like when I watch a movie, I'm just like, whoa, the symbolism is just literally everywhere because I understand the story, right? And so once you understand the story is being shown to you constantly to help you awaken, right? They're doing it to help you awaken, and it's not because they're trying to you know, say you're stupid, you know, and insult you. They're doing it to help you awaken. It's all part of it, and to see if your memory can be triggered. But obviously, if you're working with this oil, you don't become stressed, you don't become nervous, you don't become anxious. You start to see everything as divine because you are becoming divine. So therefore, you see the world mirrors what you are, right? If you're stressed out, you know, everything you see is you're gonna think is supposed to be adding to your stress. It's just a whole different way of being. So it's important to work with this. Now, you know, so yeah, so if you want to know, you know, how to save your oil, you need to check where the sun is, and then every month go and see when the moon is going over that location where the sun was on your natal chart. Okay? And you need to be able to see where it was, what sign it was in, and know from the beginning of the day, you should go 2.5 days. It should last, so that you should not be eating anything acidic, coffee, alcohol, you know, meat, and work with that. You know, I don't eat those things a lot anyhow, so I guess that's why I think it's been okay for me, because I don't have that type of diet. but it's supposed to balance you. So anyhow, hope you can sign up for the class tomorrow night. It's exciting. It's nice to get a little chat. We have a few people, you know, get some good discussion happening after the class. So that's good. So just hit me up with an email because my website is not posted this class yet. And we can work from there, and I'll send you the Zoom link, and we can start to learn how to really work with our bodies to help us get to perfect divine health of the body and mind. So bliss to you all. Hope to see you tomorrow night. Take care. Bye.